Welcome to the Constructed Awareness Podcast. In this episode, Tyler Orr and Lei Rhyne discuss the integration of CA and Expressive Art Therapy. Welcome back to another episode of the Constructed Awareness Podcast. My name is Tyler Orr, and I have on today with me Lei Rhyne. Hello, Lei.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. I'm excited about today for a couple reasons. One, it's been months since I've done a podcast and I've really missed it. And the reason that I've not done one has been because of a similar situation that you're in right now.
Yeah.
We're both in. So I had to take a break from all this because I was knee deep in completing my dissertation. And
yeah, it takes a little bit of time, doesn't it?
Yep. So for the listeners at home, Lei and I are in school together at University of Cumberland's PhD students in counselor education and supervision. So that's how we met. Are you pretty close to being done?
No. I mean, I'm closer than I was. I shouldn't say that. I'm not anywhere where you are because you just finished. But I take my comps this January, or this fall actually, this September, and then I can start dissertation, I think summer, either fall or spring or summer next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So I'm, they say like all but dissertation, ABD. I'm even past that because I finished dissertation. I'm just waiting until I graduate. So I guess I'm ABG, all but graduated.
All but graduated.
Yeah, so I got a couple more months. So I like to do these podcasts. I'm going to get back into the habit of doing one a month. So I guess just a couple more of these before I get the title upgrade, which is exciting.
That is exciting.
Great.
That's huge.
Yeah. Well, I'm also excited to do this podcast because we've had some really cool conversations over the last few months since you were trained in CA.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting, like the work that you do aside from CA, but then to hear in our talks, like how you've integrated CA into your work. So I'm excited for you to get a chance to share what you do as a therapist aside from CA, but then also like what you're doing in the integration, because it's really exciting.
Okay.
Would you like to tell people a little bit about you and where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, I'm a licensed professional counselor in Peachtree City, Georgia. I'm also a registered expressive art therapist. I'm certified in hypnotherapy, and I am a doctoral student at the University of Cumberland.
Welcome. I thought I knew what expressive art therapy was when you first started talking about it. You do? Okay.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
And then when you started to explain it, it was like, whoa, there's a lot going on. It seems like it pulls a lot of things in.
It does.
It's different than art therapy, right?
It's very different from art therapy. There's several creative therapies. You have art therapy, music therapy, you have movement, somatic therapy, but expressive art therapy takes 5 different modalities and uses at least 3 of them within one session. So we may start with meditation and movement and move to art and then move to journaling. Or we may start with art and then looking at that piece of art. If this piece of art would move, how would it move? And what would it look like if it was moving physically? Step into that movement and then go to journaling. We may do some psychodrama with them. Or if you have a group, you could actually do a human sculpture with each piece of art. So there's so many ways of using these modalities to pull from, what you're somatically feeling, and the thoughts and the words and the emotions and actually process it, which is, I think, why I became so interested in CA, because it just made sense to me. It made total sense to me.
Awesome. Yeah.
As we use we use the externalizing with the art and the movement, and then you use it in a different way. So it registered with me.
Okay, great. So you said there were 5?
Yeah, there's 5
things.
Mm-hmm.
What are the?
Yep. Yeah. There's like art and sound and movement and journaling and psychodrama.
Okay. And any particular kind of art?
Visual. I mean, it could be charcoal, it could be clay, it could be watercolors, it could be acrylics, any type of art. But the visual art is one section of it. And I think a lot of people, I've had conversations, I just wrote a paper about this the other day, how I was meeting with a colleague of mine and she was like, I'm doing expressive art therapy. And I was like, oh, cool, what are you doing? What are you integrating? What modalities are your favorite? And she goes, I just had them draw. And I'm like, what? That's art therapy. Also, art therapy is a little bit more clinical. A lot of art therapists will actually analyze the drawing and do diagnosis. If you're a psychometrist, you can do a diagnosis with the drawing, or a psychologist.
Wow.
But with expressive arts, that's what you let the client do. The client actually analyzes, and I don't want to say analyze, they become curious and question what the art says to them. Yeah. If this piece of art had a message for you, what would it be?
Good. So, yeah.
What's it trying to share?
So they get to decide
It's theirs, right?
Yeah. It's not like those ink blot things, where it's like there's a right answer.
No.
And if you say that,
there's a right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Because art's so subjective. It's subjective. It means different things to different people. 10 people can look at the same piece of art and you get 10 different responses to it.
So this is more than just drawing a little in therapy.
Yeah, it's not just.
Are there particular influences that this approach pulls from?
As far as, the movement, actually, the movement came along before somatic movement. It was from the 70s. All of this kind of came about in the 60s and 70s from 3 different founders. I mean, Natalie Rogers was the daughter of Carl Rogers, who did Rogerian therapy, and Helen Rogers, who is an artist. And she created the creative connection. And her big thing was emphasizing psychological safety and exploration of art with people with anxiety, stress, and depression. Okay. And then Sean McNiff actually emphasized the imagination and the dialogue with the images. If this image could speak to you, if it had a message for you, what would it be? And then Paulo Neal actually emphasized decentering, intermodal transference between modalities, and having an aesthetic perspective on art and becoming more curious about it instead of looking at the art and diagnosing it. So those 3 are really kind of our founders that brought it all together and made the creative arts.
Was there an individual that brought all that together?
No, it's actually the 3 of them at Lesley University. They each had a piece, an instrumental piece in it. And then together with others, they created IATA, which is the International Expressive Art Therapy Association. Okay. And that's where we get our credentials and our training and our certifications.
Yeah, I think when I was first hearing expressive art therapy, I was thinking of that like as more of like a general term, not like a specific brand, if that's a good way to say it. Right. So like, is it more of like it's a specific thing?
I feel it is a specific thing. And I think when you talk to expressive arts, because there were some expressive art therapists that feel like being it is art and it is fluid, we should not try to put it in a container,
Yeah.
right? And it should be able to grow, and it should be its own entity. Where some of my colleagues and I feel like it's this. This is what it is. It's like, it's these modalities. It's taking these modalities and actually exploring them differently, because we all use it differently. There are some that are much stronger in psychodrama than they are in the art piece or the sound piece. I'm stronger in the sound piece and the art piece. So it is fluid, but there still has to be some structure that it is these five that actually create the foundation.
And in CA, there's the three, which we'll talk about, that create.
And there's the three.
Right? And some people are stronger and others than it fits. Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess I'm curious. I've never asked you this. Like, are there like levels of training in this? And like, where are you? If there are, where are you in that?
There's different locations that you can actually go through the training. I went through EFI, which is the Expressive Art Florida Institute, but Leslie College holds one, Preston College holds one, but I didn't know another master's. They actually do a whole
actual
master's
degrees in this.
in Expressive Arts. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. There's only a few, but I was like, I'm good. I've already got.
That's fantastic. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of that for like a particular. I've never heard of like, I've got a degree, a master's in CBT or a master's in EMDR. You know,
Right.
that's impressive.
Yeah. So the institute I went to was like 2 years of training and exploration.
Okay.
And they really walk you through, you explore it, but you're also like a client. So you understand what the client's going to feel and how it's supposed to feel, as opposed to learning a technique and applying it.
Mm.
You're actually experiencing it.
Well, I'm really glad I hope that this, in its own small way, helps to bring some awareness about the uniqueness of this.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I went back to get my PhD. I want to do more research articles and writings and get more information out there about expressive arts, that it's not just art.
Making macaroni art.
It's so much more.
That, yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. Is there anything else you want to say about expressive art therapy? As far as like, if you wish someone knew about it?
I think the one thing I've noticed more than anything since I started doing this is the majority of my clients that come to me they come in and they've already done CBT and DBT and narrative therapy, talk therapy, but they still feel bad. Like they still have the gut-wrenching feelings and the tightness of the chest and the ruminating thoughts. They can use the CBT to notice their behavior and change their reaction or hold back from a reaction, but the feelings are still there. And it's that working through and processing those feelings and those emotions are what the expressive art does, which is also what CA does. So they're so parallel, which is why I was so like, this makes so much sense to me. It's so much
Is
alike.
it all experiential? Like, or is there talk therapy elements of it?
I add to it, and like in all of mine, because I use CBT, but I use it at the end. I don't start with it. I feel like you've got to get through the processing the feelings and the emotions before you start applying behavioral therapy.
I agree.
To me, that makes so much more sense.
I love that. Okay, aside from CA, we're going to talk about how to integrate it, but before it's integrated, could you kind of walk through like what a hypothetical session might look like?
A hypothetical session would look like someone comes in and let's say they had a panic attack, a reaction to something. And we start off exploring and getting curious about it and asking, where they were, what was going on, being in that place, right? And then I have them talk about, when have you felt this before? And then I ask them to go to the canvas. I'm always like, let's take that to the canvas. They take it to the canvas. And the first thing I do is have them pick up the first medium they're drawn to and the first color they're drawn to and just make the first mark on the page. It's not about drawing a portrait or creating a landscape or creating a picture. It's about if this feeling was an image or a symbol,
what would abstract images.
And sometimes, yeah. And I also have like magazines next to them. They can go through magazines. They can pull out words. They can pull out images. They can pull out anything they're drawn to. But the point is, they need to be drawn to it. And if they're drawn to it, they put it on the page, and it just keeps coming. While they're doing that, I'm asking them questions like, what are you noticing now? How are you feeling about that? What else is coming up for you? When they're finished with that, I ask them to name it, and then what feelings came up for them. And then if it had a message, what would it be? And out of that comes journaling. And I'll give them a journal prompt depending on what their message was. So if the message was, this isn't yours to carry, that'll be the journaling prompt. And then from that, it keeps them in a stream of consciousness where they can actually kind of dump everything that they've been ruminating on, everything they've been holding. It's like a release of baggage, right? So, and then sometimes if the journaling's not enough, or I feel like they really need to move, if they're still holding it in their chest, because I ask them things like that, are you feeling it in your body anywhere? Then we'll get up and do movement. And then,
you do it with them?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I like to model for them so they don't feel like I'm the teacher watching them. Like I don't think anyone
I wouldn't be.
That.
Yeah.
You know, right? I mean, I'm going to sit here and you move. So I'll get up. Right. So I will actually get up and move with them, maybe even model for them. If we've done any type of inner child work, I will actually do some somatic healing with them just to help them soothe that inner child, have dialogue with that inner child.
Like a somatic resource?
And yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing we may do is drumming, because I love drumming.
Is that one of the 5?
And sometimes they need
that? It is.
It goes in the sound.
Okay.
It goes up under sound. Yeah. So we'll do some drumming. And if they're anxious or angry and they need to drum it out and beat on a drum, that's what we do. So it gives.
Thinking about your neighbor.
It just gives.
Got the person in the office next to you.
They're used to me right now. They're very used to me right now. So the last people I was next to actually miss her drumming, so that's nice. But it just gives them a way to externalize and release. You know, they're taking it and they're putting it in the drums, they're putting it in the painting, they're putting it in the writing.
Is that what most of what it's doing is doing? You think is it most of the 5 are externalizing? Maybe all 5 are externalizing?
Yeah. I think it's doing a couple of things. I think it's making them realize when you talk about the mind, body, and spirit, it's really connecting the mind, body, and spirit, right? Because your mind's ruminating on all these thoughts. The body's holding on to all the stress and the anxiety. And the spirit is just getting weighed down by it all. And if you can come to a place that you recognize the tightness in your chest, the tightness in your throat, right? And start working on it. Like when they have tightness in their throat, we work on chanting. Or we do humming, we do chanting, we do song.
Or you draw it, right?
It just starts. And we draw it.
It's really cool because what I'm hearing, and you tell me if I'm right or if this sounds off, but it's like they notice what's happening internally, whether it's thoughts or sensations or spirit even. and then they're externalizing it through the
Yes.
expressive art, either any of the five, right?
Yeah.
Which fits with CA because that's tuning.
It's tuning.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. We just never had a word for it. So when I was going through your training and you talked about dual awareness and tuning, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And I think that's what I really liked about it. It's all of this is very abstract and difficult sometimes for clients to understand, right? But then with you and your constructive awareness, you actually made it very tangible. Like you put verbiage to it. You know, you have the 3 building blocks and you can move between those and it gives explanation.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I think that was a little bit more challenging with the expressive arts. Like we would do it, but they would experience it. But it was so abstract. But CA kind of helped make it very tangible. Because you do have those building blocks.
Well, I'm so glad. I've been thinking lately a lot. Like if I had like the power to change like one thing about the human experience that would make it better. Lately, I've been thinking that I would probably choose that people would have the ability to easily tell the difference between what's happening inside them and outside them. You know, like I'm just more and more convinced that like most mental health problems are the result of like the person can't tell the difference between what's happening in their environment and their mind. Right? They think something terrible is happening, and so their body responds as if it's actually happening in the space that they're in. So like, and I've been thinking a lot lately, it's like, well, you know, we're going to talk, I want to give a quick rundown of CA, but you got, in case you're listening and you don't know, but there's 3 building blocks, mind, body, and external. And if your mind and your body are in turmoil, there's only one other place to go. So I think a lot of the therapy that I've been leaning into as a CA therapist lately has been more like, how do we externalize these internalized things that we sort of get trapped into? Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is so good for that because it's all a way to externalize an internalized process. Does that align with what you do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, there's so many of these content creators that say just process your feelings and your emotions, but nobody's talking about how, right? And I get so many clients that are like, if I need to process my emotions, do I just sit with them? If I sit with them, how long do I sit with them?
And then what, right? And yeah.
And then what? And they're just like, so I have to sit here and just feel bad?
No, I probably mentioned this in one of your trainings, but I don't know if I mentioned the podcast, but there's a scientist named Willoughby Britton. Did I talk about her? She studies like the dark side of mindfulness and meditation, which we never hear about. We always hear about the positive sides. And like, you know, a client of mine turned me on to her because he had this experience in meditation where it's like, you know, the Buddha's enlightenment was he realized there was no self. And that was liberating. Right. Well, this happened to a guy that I know, and it was traumatizing. He was like completely dissociative. He had no sense of like grounding and had this really terrible experience. And so he was reading the work of Willoughby Britton and got me turned on. And like I listened to a podcast and that she was on, and there was a book called Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, I think is what it's called. Pretty sure that's what she wrote the foreword for it. And in the book, they talk about 5 or 6 anchor points. It was like the stomach, the chest, the nostrils, hands, feet, and external. I think just external senses. I think that's what they were. And these were like points that are typically focused on in meditation. So she wanted to know like which anchor points were most regulating for different people. And she said, and I reached out to her anyway. I even reached out on Instagram trying to figure out, is this paper published? Because I want to cite this because it's fascinating. But she said that what they found was the anchor points that were most dysregulating for people with trauma were the torso, like stomach and chest. And what was most grounding for people with trauma was hands and feet and external. and to me, hands and feet is external, that sense of touch. And so that was exactly what I'd been seeing in my practice. So I was so pumped to hear that, because it's like, like you say, these therapists, they'll say, encourage, like, just feel your body. Well, what if your body is not safe? Especially a certain part of, like, every therapist in the world has taught at one point diaphragmatic breathing and belly breathing. Like, but what if the belly is like the most unsafe part of the person's whole reality? So most of the time we're in an environment that's safe and stable. Sometimes we're not, but most of the time we are. But, it's like, how many times are you in a room that's completely safe and you're a nervous wreck all the time? And that's because your poor body is confused, thinking that what's happening in the mind is happening out in the environment. And so environment is usually the safest place. So that externalizing part is super cool. And we've got Willoughby Britton's research to back it up too now. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love
work.
That.
You care if I do a quick rundown of CA for those
absolutely.
watching at home? So constructed awareness is based on 3 principles. And I always like to just present it that way. I find that's the easiest way. So the first principle is, if you bring awareness to something, it changes. Like, little kids behave differently if they're being watched versus if they're not. We all do things when we're home alone that we wouldn't do in front of other people, right? And those are examples of kind of like external awareness, but like, it's also true internally with our own personal lived experience. The more you become aware of your experience, your thoughts and your sensations and your behaviors and the things that are happening around you, the more likely changes to naturally arise because of that awareness. Like, I think that a bad pattern, or a bad habit, or a pattern that repeats, that's unwanted, it only repeats because of a lack of awareness of everything that's going on in that pattern, right? And the more aware we become of these things, these little things that we might notice, like a sensation or a particular thought, can become the thing that kind of wakes us up out of that autopilot response that keeps us going in these same ways over and over again. So with CA, we don't put any energy into trying to change the client's experience, which probably fit well with what you were doing before. We put our energy into helping the client deepen their awareness of their experience, and then we trust that that awareness will bring about change that the client's looking for. And the beautiful thing about it is, it doesn't come from me or some treatment plan that I write up. It comes from the client's own inner wisdom, right? So we don't really it's not like CBT, like you mentioned. We don't use willpower. We're not thought stopping or thought reframing. We're literally just letting whatever is here be here and bringing a deeper awareness to it. But like you said earlier, we run into a problem, I think, where people say that message, but there's a lack of direction about what you're bringing awareness to. So that's where the second principle comes in. That reality, like every moment of your life, basically, is constructed by only 3 parts. And that's your thoughts, sensations, and external sense perceptions. So everyone has a mental building block, a sensation building block, and an external building block. Right? Pretty cool. We can boil your entire reality down to those 3 things. And this is based on or inspired by the theory of constructed emotion, which is Lisa Feldman Barrett, which is, goes against the traditional way of viewing emotions, that are these things that live inside of us, like Inside Out movies, right? The little characters.
Right. Right.
But instead, they're experiences that arise, that are constructed in the moment after moment after moment. But she, in her theory, doesn't give information about what the components are that construct the emotion. So that's where CA comes in. And I like to hope that it simplifies it and takes it a little further by saying that the building blocks are thoughts, sensations, and external senses. Okay.
I think it definitely does.
Thank you. And the third principle takes that, I think, a little more into the clinical realm. So we talk about something called orientation. So the third principle is that people tend to naturally rely more on one building block more than the others in different situations. So sometimes a person might express a mental orientation. That means they're relying on their mental building block to regulate themselves. That's the way we talk about it a lot. It's like how they use the building blocks to regulate or to connect with other people. So I'm mentally oriented. I tend to connect and regulate mentally. I like a more intellectual kind of engagement. And if I get upset, I start planning. Right? I start rationally working through whatever the problem is. Other people might express more of a sensation orientation. My wife's that way. That's her orientation almost exclusively. So whereas I'm a mind moving through the world, she's a body. So her body is always active and moving and expressing. She'd probably love the work you do. Honestly, she'd probably just fit right into that. But yeah, so she regulates herself through like, expressing feelings, through crying, through moving her body. I always know if she's having a bad day because she'll be in the floor rolling around on a tennis ball or something. It's like she's physically trying to work through whatever is bothering her, and she'll say that to me. If I'm having a rough day, why don't you get down on the floor of the tennis ball? And I'm like, that never crossed my mind. It's funny. It's like when I get stressed, my body gets really like still, and my mind gets really active. When she gets upset, her mind gets really inactive, and her body takes off. Right. And other times people are externally oriented. My mom's a good example of someone who's primarily externally oriented because she lives outside of herself. She's always like taking care of other people, putting the needs of other people first, always thinking of others first. And so she regulates herself by regulating the environment and the people in the environment.
Right? I can recognize that.
Yeah, you recognize that?
I recognize that in parts of my family as well. Yes.
Well, that's great. I love externally oriented people, by the way. So they always take good care of me.
They do. Sometimes it's like, sit down, relax.
Yeah, we went to, yesterday was Father's Day, so we went over to my parents' house, and it's just watching Mom. I always kind of observe her in that situation.
Yes.
It's like she made all this food, and like she wouldn't eat till everyone's done, and she wouldn't sit down to eat. She's just sitting there kind of standing, eating, just scanning, making sure, do you need this? Do you need
Jumping up
this?
if anybody has, let me get you another drink. Let me get you the salt.
But that's her happy place.
Yes.
That's her happy place. She loves it.
Yep.
Yeah, she would used to do this thing where she would text me out of the blue and say, "Are you okay?" Like with no context. I never understood what she was doing or why, but now I know it's like she wasn't feeling okay, so she's like checking in with me to see if I'm okay, because if I'm okay, she's okay. Right?
Yep.
So we have these 3 building blocks with associated 3 primary orientations. And orientation is always changing. It's always flowing. No one is always just mentally oriented or just external or sensation. It's always changing. But we do find that a lot of people tend to be what we call fixed. Like they stay in that one building block most of the time, where other people tend to be more like fluctuating. So that's where the building blocks are always in flux. When that happens, there's not a lot of like emotional stability, because there's not a happy place. There's not a safe place, a home base within their reality, because the building blocks just keep moving and changing. So we tend to work with individuals differently. I'd be curious in our conversation if you found a way to work with more fixed or more fluctuating with the expressive arts, but we can talk about that. And so within the CA resourcing, we do something called tuning. So first we focus on, if we can figure out how a client's oriented. So it will take me, if I were the client, I'm mentally oriented. Well, that tells us that my mental building blocks kind of overdeveloped and my sensation and external are less developed. So we may not focus on the mental resourcing very much, because I've already got plenty of that just from my lived experience. But we have these less developed building blocks. That's probably where we would focus on. And within the CA trainings, we learn resources for all 3 building blocks. So what we would do with me is probably focus on those awareness-based resources for sensation and external, to kind of bring those up where I have a more like balanced or whole picture of my life, right? I'm more aware of all parts of myself instead of just the one that I relied on my whole life. And then once we have awareness of all 3, then we start to do what we mentioned earlier, which is the tuning. So tuning is shifting awareness between the 3 building blocks. It's useful to help clients see in the moment how their experience is constructed, right? They can see, okay, this external thing is happening, and then they go to their mind, here's what I'm thinking about it. Okay, and then the body, here's what I'm feeling about it. And that collection of those 3 building blocks creates the emotion that the person's experiencing. in that moment. And so, as I was developing CA, that worked great, but eventually figured out that I could take tuning and use it to process trauma. Right. And so I developed an intervention, I guess we could call it, technique called memory reconstructing, which uses memory reconsolidation science mixed with tuning to process memories. And I've just found it to be super good. Lots. I did EMDR for years. I was an EMDR trainer, consultant. I love EMDR, but I find the CA processing, the memory reconstructing, to be a lot kinder and softer, easier. And level 3 is we learned something called responsive processing. Have you done level 3 yet? You did. Okay.
No.
Yeah, it is. And so you went into certification. So there's a certification program with CA. So that's where you are. So you're highly trained, but you haven't yet learned the responsive processing part. But we're going to fix that in January.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So that's my spiel. Anything you want to add to that?
I think the other thing I like about the CA is it also helps keep the client present.
Uh-huh.
It's not like total hypnosis where you put them under and they're re-experiencing their trauma or they're bringing up their trauma. Like, you are keeping them so present with the externalizing, right? And it's so much easier for them and softer, but it's also moving at their pace. I mean, it's client led, you're guiding them, but it's really client led, and you can move them through each building block where they can experience each step.
Yeah.
And it just gets easier and easier for them.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think it's been great for the clients. I have a couple of clients that ruminate a lot. And it's hard for them to get into their body. It's hard for them to even tap into what they're feeling physically. But being able to use CA with them, I have to admit, at the beginning, they became kind of cranky with it because they did not want to get out of their mind. They did not want to leave that space that they're so used to doing it. They're so used to reasoning it. There's a reason for it, and I'm going to keep going on this rabbit hole. This is what I'm comfortable with, and I don't want to have to explore anything else. But after they got used to it, they were like, it's dissipating. They're like, it's dissipating. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it does for you. Yeah, that's called process.
That's great. Well, even before you learned processing, level 2 was saying that's where we do the memory reconstructing. Level 1 is just all resourcing. Something was happening for you in that first training, because it was either after the first or second day you sent me all the stuff you were writing of how to end. So what happened for you in that training?
It was so familiar of tapping into the subconscious and the somatic awareness for them, for individuals, that I was I sat up that night and wrote several different session outlines of how I could implement this and integrate it with the expressive arts. Mm-hmm. And I could just see it. It made so much sense. And when we're going through the training and I'm reading about it, it was clicking. But when we went through the practicum and we were actually experiencing it, I was finding I need to draw something. I need to move. I can put sound to this. I can insert sound right here, and it would just give it so much more for me, right? And so I started doing that with my clients before I even, finished level 1. I remember I was nervous about telling you because I was kind of hey, so I've taken your technique and I've kind of added it to my sessions in Expressive Arts, and it worked really well.
So it was more like you were integrating it into the work that you were already doing. It wasn't so much like an equal mashing, right? It was more Yeah,
it was so seamless. it just flowed. And it also, like I said before, since it was so tangible that I could use this part of CA and then weave it into expressive arts and then come back to another section of CA and then do another part of expressive arts. And I've probably done it about 10 or 12 different ways now, you know? And but the ending, the one I found is most is like ending with externalizing what we've gone through in session on canvas or on the drums or with movement, depending on their type, you know, whether they're SEM or MES, whatever type they are. And then give them a couple of prompts. And the feedback has been, I never saw it this way. I never looked at it this way. This makes so much sense. And not just what we're doing, but what they're experiencing. Like, I didn't realize my reaction was tied to this memory back here. I didn't realize, even though we've done inner child work, but it clicks in a very different way because it seems like it comes from a stream of consciousness, not someone giving them psychoeducation about the inner child and how all your experiences previously does this, and that's why you react. But when they experience it themselves from a stream of consciousness, it holds so much more weight. And it's like a light bulb just goes off. And you're like,
I'm just curious, man. I wish I could be in the room when you're doing this. But I know at first you were doing like expressive arts therapy, integrating probably the CA building block structure into it. Have you played around with doing like more like CA memory reconstructing with elements of expressive arts? So it's sort of flip-flop?
Yes. It's flip-flopped. I've done it, and it all depends on my clients. Like the ones that are really mentally oriented, right? I will use CA with them and then pull in the expressive arts because they have such a hard time with the somatic piece and externalizing it. And I've found that is very good.
Could you walk us through like a kind of a typical session, what that would look like doing it that way?
Basically, it is having them going through the bridging process and coming up with the attachment bridge and coming up, finds the memory, creates the picture, and then moves them through each block back and forth. But I recognize I can't stay with somatic a long time with them. It's like we have to touch on it because they get frustrated.
Yeah. And that's what I think is cool about the tuning and the memory reconstructing is like, you're not required to stay. There's not a protocol for like you're staying in a certain building block. So what it'll, for those at home, like what memory reconstructing is. So Lee, you mentioned the attachment bridge, which is like a technique we use to find a memory to process. You take that memory and say we start there, like we start with the three building blocks. So that's the mental, the picture, and notice visual details about it or things that the person hears about the thought, like, you know, what do they hear in their mind? And it's not like a cognitive approach. It's almost more of a bottom up. Like we're actually like using visual and audio, like audio cues for noticing a thought. Like what colors do you see in the picture? How many people are in the picture? What color's their shirt? You know, is there a window? What do you see out of the window? Like we're asking these sorts of visual questions. So we'll hang out there looking at the picture and describing it for a while, and then we might switch to the body, maybe. Like, so as you look at the picture, what do you feel in your body? And then we're going to notice like temperature and weight, shape, size, all these things you can feel inside your body. Yeah. And however long you need to stay there, it's fine. But then you can move back to the thought and notice more, or you can move external and notice like things in the room, or we use like objects during the process, like things that they can hold and touch and look at, or sometimes even things they can listen to. And we haven't hooked people's heads up to electrodes yet to see what that's doing to the brain. That's next. So I can't say for sure, but you've seen it. Something happens. Like there's a processing that happens where as they're, I think it's like you're never in one place long enough to like get overwhelmed or like dissociate. It's like, yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I also feel I feel like with the feelings, whether it's emotional, physical, or the thoughts, they're kind of like young children, right? Like they keep coming up until you give them the attention they're seeking. And instead of pushing them down and ignoring them, right? The more you ignore them, the kind of louder they get, the more they hang around. But then when you actually get curious about them, and you start asking those questions as to what does it feel like? Does it have a shape? Does it have a temperature? Is it strong? Is it throbbing? Is there a tingling, right? And you spend time with that, they start to dissipate. It's kind of like, I used to tell my clients when thoughts came through and feelings came through, they were like clouds. You can acknowledge they're there, let them float by. Just don't grab onto them and go off with them. And don't grab onto them and hold them. Just let them float through. But this gives them so much of a more tangible way of doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. That was my problem with EMDR, where it's like, what are you noticing now? That kind of open-ended question. It's like, well, I don't know. What do you mean? So we're breaking it down into smaller parts. So instead of what are you noticing now, it's what do you notice when we look at this one part of the thought? Or what do you notice when you feel this one sensation in your body, or you notice this one thing in the room? And it narrows the focus enough where I think it helps people stay contained during the processing. But I derailed your story a little bit, so let's back up. So you're doing this with a client. Yeah.
I'm doing this, and then we'll move to the canvas. They'll be sitting at the canvas. And sometimes I'm letting them paint as they're moving through it. And that is their external, right? Or they have a drum in front of them, and the drumming can be changed depending on where they are with it.
So meaning when you go to the external building block, that's when you bring in the 5?
You bring in the 5. Yeah, you bring in. And then moving from that to, and it really is very, I don't want to stay instinctive. You really have to know your client, like where they need to go next. I mean, you have to do behavior observation. If they're starting to wiggle, I'm like, you invite movement, like you do when they're feeling something in their body that just can't dissipate. It's not going to getting any less, right? That's a horrible explanation, but so you invite the movement, and you invite, if this feeling, if this thought had movement, what would it be?
But it's not just a hypothetical question. Like you would actually invite the movement.
You would actually get up and invite the movement. Yeah. And then at the end, going back to the painting or the journaling, and where are we now with that, and the processing of it.
Love that. And then you just kind of go through the normal reconstructing process. Okay. What about if you're incorporating like in more of like the CA resourcing into your expressive arts therapy work?
That is depending on if I have the CA is into it. I usually do start off with the curiosity about what they're feeling and the location.
Okay. So is it like, do you kind of tune? So let's say they're drumming or they're drawing. Is it like, so what do you notice in your body as you do this? What thoughts come to mind as you do this? What do you see on the page?
Yes.
Or what do you hear? Is it kind of like that?
It's similar to that. Yes, very much so. And then at the end, if I do just CA and then expressive arts, which is what I started with, I would go through the whole CA process. And then at the end, I would have them paint it out. And they would paint out the process. Like I have one client, it all was surrounded with doors, certain doors. And her painting starting from a specific door. And then there was these changes of colors and symbols into a new door. That was
So
very
cool.
different.
So cool.
But the door was actually a memory that that happened in her childhood.
Mm.
So, but she was able to externalize and write and paint out that process. And along the way, she had writings underneath of how she got, and words of how she got from this door to that door.
Love that. Well, there's an exercise we do in CA where it's like you'll maybe notice an object in the room. We'll take I'll do it. It's the turtle shell. And then we'll notice details. I see like the brown, it's shiny, it's kind of a darker around the edges, it's oval shape. Okay, well, what thoughts come to mind as you look at that? Well, it was given to me by a friend of mine who passed away. So, I'm having thoughts about him. I could see he had dark hair, mustache, darker skin. I could see his office where this used to be. And then it's like, okay, what sensations do you feel? I feel kind of a tightness right here. It's choked up a little bit. Feel a little warmth on top of my shoulders. And then you can say, okay, as you notice the turtle shell, the thoughts and the sensations, what emotion would that create? What emotion is that constructing? I'm going to say something like sadness. I could see, like in your work, like where they're painting something, and you say, that's the external, right? As you notice what you're painting, what thoughts come to mind? I just thought about my mother. Right? What sensations do you feel in your body? Right? I feel heat, tension. What emotion would you call that? Anger. Right? See, that would be such a useful thing to help the client. It's like we call it the emotion tracker in the trainings. It's like moving through those 3 building blocks and tuning through them really quickly to understand how the emotion's constructed. And I just see that as a perfect way to do that. Just a really creative way to do that.
It just gives them, I think what I love most about all of this is that for individuals who have been through trauma, it gives them a nonverbal way to express the trauma that they just cannot verbalize and don't want to.
And they don't have to.
And they don't have to work through it. They don't have to.
I love that. Yeah, and that's the thing about constructed awareness too. It's like in the processing, the therapist doesn't have to know everything. It's not like a talk therapy where you have to rehash everything. All I need to know as a CA therapist is enough information to know as a client present with their experience. They don't have to tell me what it is, all the details anyway. Like there was a training video that we watched in the level 2 where, if you remember, like we don't know at all what happened. All we know is something happened in a bathroom, and it's like, fine, that's all I need to know if that's all the client wants to say. And the client was able to process through it without, and I still don't know. I still don't know the details. So yeah, that's great. Well, for time, does this feel like an okay place to stop? Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm really excited about the work you've done and appreciate it greatly because I've enjoyed integrating it and using it in my practice.
Great. Well, thank you. And I got a feeling that there'll probably be some sort of official integration of what you're doing and what I'm doing at some point in some form of training. So just give us time. Let us get out of school first, and then.
Right.
You mind if I share a little bit of news?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So where my heart has been since I finished school, I really had time to invest more in CA, and a lot of just like thinking and feeling about it and just being with what comes up with me when it's with CA. And I've been, I don't think I've talked to you about this, but I've been really feeling like, okay, what does constructed awareness need? Like, I've done all this, I've developed all this, some, initial research is done, I got the PhD on the way. What now? And I think we don't need more content, more foundational stuff. To the point now where what's needed is just more people trained. And so I've been thinking about what are the obstacles that people might face to receiving training. And there's lots of obstacles I can think of, but there's not a lot that I can have any sort of control over. But the one that I can is the price, potential financial barriers. And in my desire to make CA as accessible as possible, starting this week, what I've decided to do is I'm reducing the price of constructed awareness by roughly half. So it's been $897. I'm reducing it to $457. And I'm offering scholarships for students, provisionally licensed therapists, educators, people who work in community mental health or nonprofits. I'm doing a scholarship down to $247 for that. And if you're listening and you're CA curious, you know, I hope this helps. You know, I hope this helps you take that step. If you still feel like that, you know, there's still some sort of financial barrier that still, you know, even the discount doesn't allow you to do it, reach out to me. Like, I never want anyone to not learn CA because of money, right? So when I think about the future of CA, I don't think about revenue. I think about training people, making it as accessible as possible so that like this thing can grow, because I love it. I do. I think this has so much potential for healing and transformation on a larger scale. And the way where my head's been lately, it's like the way to get there is to train more people. And it seems, I know like traditional wisdom or whatever, conventional wisdom is to not go down in price. But everything's going up. Everything's expensive. I just want to hook y'all up. So, and that doesn't mean nothing changes about the training. It's still the same amount of CEs. It's still the same CEs, ASWB, MBCC, APA. Quality, duration, everything is exactly the same. All I'm changing is the price to make it easier for people these days. And I'm going to run it until December 31st of 2027 and then reevaluate. So yeah, I got a year and a half from today to get it while the getting's good. What do you think about that?
I think it's wonderful. It is, because like you said, the price is going up for everything. And I know some students and interns that are very interested in this, but you know, they're already having to deal with
everything,
college loans being cut and this and that and free internships. Yeah. So, you know, that's already hard. So I think you're going to get a lot of good feedback.
I hope so. You know, at the time of the filming this, it's like $4 a gallon for gas, you know, whatever. So I'm just trying to do my part. But yeah, you know, if anybody wants to reach out to me, you visit constructedawareness.com to learn more. You can contact me through the contact form there on the website, or you can reach me at info@constructedawareness.com. But let's say somebody wanted to reach you, Lee. They hear this, you talking about the work that you do, and they say, man, I live in Georgia or wherever else you're licensed. I'd like to work with her. How would they get in touch with you?
I can be reached at lei@lrhyne.com. That's the email address. And you can also reach out to me at lrhyne.com and the contact.
Okay, just your first letter, first initial, and then your last name? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm doing training on Expressive Arts Therapy now, and I do it online.
Awesome. So if you're a therapist listening and you want to learn Expressive Arts Therapy, you can reach out and do it there.
Yeah.
You have a plug for that? Where would they go for that? Same contact?
That is also same contact. The lrhyne.com to the contact sheet, or the lei@lrhyne.com.
All right. This has been fun. I appreciate it. We'll have to do it again someday.
Yeah.
Good luck on your journey of everything. And
thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next time.